Are you looking to leverage the latest and best ideas to grow your advisory business from the best minds in the industry? Join us every Wednesday at noon Pacific for our speaker series, featuring dynamic guests sharing real strategies for real results. Brought to you by The Best Notary, where we help estate planning attorneys grow their business with less stress and more success.
Welcome to July 2nd, 2025. This is The Best Notary's Trusted Advisor Speaker Series. The intent of this series is both to showcase and connect amazing trusted advisors within the estate planning and adjacent industry. So I'm your host today, Leah. I would be happy to take any questions or if you have any technical support questions, that sort of thing. I'd like to introduce Eli and Stephanie. Respectively, they are the CEO and COO of The Best Notary, host of this series. Take it away, Eli.
Thank you so much, Leah, for moderating. So glad to have everyone here, so many familiar faces. This is a very special presentation. I met Jennifer a while ago. We both serve on the board of the Peninsula Estate Planning Council. And as I got to know her, I understood her business. And it wasn't until I think I saw a copy of this presentation you're about to see, and it blew me away. The detail, the level of rigor that they put into helping people organize their assets. Jennifer Hancox, she's a retail leader and GIA accredited jewelry professional, AJP with diamond and pearl qualifications, developing and leading highly trained teams of gem and jewelry experts to deliver exceptional customer experiences in finding, designing, and renovation of fine jewelry. She works with traveling jewelry reps, vendors, and a master bench jeweler to bring the best to her clients. She has established and implemented many successful training programs, including numerous development seminars for all levels of management. She brings diverse strengths from her experience overseeing teams of 10 to 200 for jewelry retailers, Google, and Michelin star restaurants. She is incredible. Jennifer will be co-presenting with Ranya Haddad, who is a business banker since 1997. She is a dedicated parent, survivor of divorce and widowhood, and now happily remarried. She actively supports local business owners and helps them grow, scale, and protect their families and businesses. Stacey also is here with us. She's an efficiency enthusiast with firsthand experience in the transformative power of letting go and getting organized. She has a master's degree in community counseling, and she's a member of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. Stacey's on a mission to empower the sandwich generation to get their lives and legacies in order. Why is this important? Because these are the folks helping their parents plan their final mile as well as their own. And in their free time, planning for their kids' futures and starting their fourth or fifth careers, like Gen Xers do. Stacey has lost some people under extraordinary circumstances, and she knows the high price of not having a plan. She's been through it, so she gets it. Basically, she's trying to make sure you suffer as little as possible, regardless of what life dishes up. I cannot wait for this presentation. So Jennifer, please take it away.
Thank you, everyone, for the great introduction, Leah and Eli and Stephanie. So thank you so much. We're glad that you're here. The fact that you're here is an important first step in empowering yourself and your loved ones in reducing the administrative and physical burden that inevitably follows life changes. So feel free to take notes. We are going to have a list of resources at the end. Type any questions into the chat like Leah instructed, and we will do our best to answer them at the end. But I have a feeling a lot of it will be answered as we go through. So with that, all right, the disclaimer. So this is kind of a fun, friendly presentation to kind of help everybody through this. But we do have to put a disclaimer on because It's not actual legal advice. It's not actual financial advice. And we do tell you, hey, this is a legal document that you need to talk to your legal professional. So just a friendly reminder on that. Okay, so this is our agenda. It's broken out into kind of 3 categories: why planning matters. There's a dialogue box there. Vital documents to consider, how to organize it, and then the Q&A at the end. So we'll do about 15 minutes for each. All right. I'm pressing extra buttons here. So we kind of went through who each of us is at the beginning. So I'm Jennifer Hancox. There's a QR code at the bottom. Next person up is Ranya. She chatted a little bit, Eli chatted a little bit about each of us. And then, of course, Stacey. We all have QR codes. If you missed it, we'll have them at the end so that you can check it again. Reach out to any of us with any questions that you might have. Okay, so how did this whole webinar start? So basically, one day I was out at happy hour with a friend of mine, with all of my friends, and I was chatting with a friend, and she said, "Oh, I'm going on vacation." And I prepped the manila envelope and put it on the refrigerator. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I never put a manila envelope on my refrigerator. And she said, hey, I'm doing this because if something happens to me when I'm on vacation, do my kids know where everything is? Does my emergency contact know where that is? And that person was Ranya. And I thought, oh my God, Ranya is the most organized person I know, but she has all this stuff. Do I have all this stuff? What if something happened to me? I don't have, brothers and sisters and, everybody in the area. And I've heard similar stories from my clients. So are any of us really prepared for what we're doing for, some life transition? You get into an accident, the worst case scenario happens. What is it? So, Ranya, you want to tell them a little about your refrigerator? And
yeah, no, welcome. Yeah, I know it's a little awkward, but as a mother a single mother at the time, who went through divorce. My kids were 1 and 3 years old. I was commuting from the Sacramento County to San Francisco County, and someone who did a lot of pre-planning. I've been in the financial industry for quite some time. Realizing that I'm divorced and traveling extensively with my young children, it made me really anxious about the accessibility to my family and my trusted friends who were on standby if I was traveling, and my kids were with their father at the time. And so that's how I decided would be the best way, is to not just have digital copies and have this, box of legal documents, but also put something on the refrigerator that is double signed and taped, with letters that are updated to my children every 6 months. And that's the manila envelope. Not only was I divorced with a 1 and 4 year old, I did find love, and I blended my Brady Bunch family with my now late husband, who had 3 daughters, and my 2 children. So planning became very crucial. Going through a divorce and going through the legal process, understanding something that I wasn't prepared for, it was very important to me coming into a blended family to ensure that there was a safe space for everyone and that everyone's needs were met, especially with teen daughters as stepdaughters, and then my 2 young ones. And how do we really navigate the complexity and make sure that communication is open, we have a strong foundation, and we make sure that all of our children are taken care of as we blend. So again, it's very important to make sure that we do have this dialogue. This is why Stacey and Jennifer and I are here. It's to make folks more aware and kind of start that conversation to spark interest in things that most families don't want to talk about. I know my family never really wanted to talk about the financial planning, inheritance discussion. They say, oh, we have it all figured out. When we pass, you guys will figure it out, thinking that siblings aren't going to fight. I'm one of 5. Thankfully, we didn't have to go through all of that, but I also have children. So what really happens to my kids? Are there legal guardians in place? Do the guardians know who they are? Are they local? Who takes the lead when something does happen? within a family structure, whether it's divorce, blended families, or it's just you and you have family out of state. Who takes care of your financial affairs and the legacy that you've built that's left behind? And making sure that we really understand and that everyone that is intended to be part of this process is aware of what's going on.
So I think we have a survey or a poll that Eli, if you can put that up, that would be great. And while we're doing
just a second, and this is going to be the first question, right?
Yeah.
All right, about preparation. Okay, so I added a couple of additional other questions. So I'm going to save this here, and I'm going to launch the first question. Just a second here.
We like to do a couple of polls throughout just to kind of gauge where you are, are you prepared? Do you agree with the statement? If something happens to me or you, my loved ones have clear instructions for honoring my wishes, single choice only. And then, click on that poll, let us know what you answered. And it's just to kind of see where everybody in the audience is, am I totally unprepared or I'm fully prepared?
I'll make you co-host, Jen, so you could see the response. Tell me if you can see the numbers as they're coming in. Are you able to see them, Jennifer?
No, but that's okay. You can read them.
Okay. All right. So a lot of distributions here. So 8% completely disagree. They don't have clear instructions. 31% strongly disagree with that statement. 15%, 2 out of 3, moderately disagree. 31%, pretty strong number here, slightly agree. And then we have 15%, the A+ folks in the room, they completely agree. They've written all down and everything's good to go.
I don't think I've ever seen such a well spread poll in one of these things ever before.
Right.
Yeah, that's pretty good though. I mean, at least, it's, a good distribution where, yeah, I've got something done too. I have everything done. So that's kind of nice. So, there we are. So the next thing, I'm trying to close this out so I can see. So on the screen, we have, if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. That's Benjamin Franklin. If you're listening to any other coaches, business coaches, etc., probably are saying somewhat of the same thing. So as you're looking at this on the left side versus the right side, if you were an executor of an estate or an only child or the oldest child and it's your job, which one of these plans would you rather be left with? Sorry, it's your problem now because I'm dead. By the way, that's a real book. You can buy it on Amazon. Or the nicely color-coded and, distributed binders on the other side with a manila envelope on your refrigerator. So which one would you do? So this is my little section, and these are kind of the fun, funny stories of why planning matters, true stories and failure to plan. So we'll go through these kind of quick, and what this does is kind of set us up for Ranya's section on documents and Stacey's section on organizing. So scenario 1, problem. What is it? Where is it? Is this everything that we can find? And then the problem is a lack of instructions in the case of somebody has dementia. So what we had was a family member was starting to show signs of dementia, diminished capacity, and they had to be moved to a facility because it was so bad. So when their executor, their stepson, their bank, everybody went into the house, cleaning everything out, they found a box of jewelry and some paperwork, all over the house in weird places. Well, as they contacted her bank, the bank did some due diligence and said, hey, she has safe deposit boxes here. So they found paperwork. They thought she had 3 safe deposit boxes. She had 6 safe deposit boxes. And one of those boxes was filled with paper bags or plastic bags. And if anybody's worked with, elderly, senior dementia patients, that's a thing. They hoard weird stuff. There's a whole book on that about what they hoard and why, or what they collect. And this was one of those things. So as we're going through, we find this bracelet. And in another presentation, I ask, is it real or is it fake? What do you think it's worth? And there was a ton of items like this in those safe deposit boxes with no paperwork. So as we went through it, the bank said, hey, let's just check to make sure this is real or not before we donate the contents to Goodwill. We went through it. She figured maybe $100,000 worth of jewelry. We went through it. It was $994,000 in jewelry. And that's auction value. So it's not even replacement value. So it would have been closer to 1.5. So this is pretty crazy. That's a real frog. It's not a real frog. It's a bracelet that's real gold, super ugly frog on it, but it's a designer. And she had like 5 of these out of a collection of 7. Anybody want to guess how much that frog bracelet on its own cost? It's pretty big. It's pretty chunky.
I've got the poll too. Is that running?
$4, 400, 4,040. Wow, I love that it moves in front of me. So yeah, $40,000 because it's name brand, etc. So luckily we caught these. So we had, like I said, 4 or 5 bracelets out of the collection of 7. So each of these bracelets at $40,000 times 5 bracelets, right? If you had the entire collection of 7, the value would have jumped up dramatically because you would have had the whole collection. They could have been auctioned off. But if this had been given to an heir that was, 23 years old, had no idea about jewelry, collectibles, anything like that, she would have melted it and we would have gotten $2,000 for the bracelet. So basically that's one of those things where paperwork, documentation, let's get it updated. If any of your family members is showing some sort of diminished capacity, dementia, etc., review their paperwork, review their will and trust, go through, is there paperwork? Where is the paperwork? Does it match up with the items that they have? And just because something's in the house doesn't mean it's the only thing hiding in the house. We all know about hiding stuff, or if it's offsite somewhere else. Oops. Sorry. Next one, the importance of the actual documentation. This was kind of a sad story to me. So mother has 4 sons, 4 children. She bought some sort of financial product. And at the bottom, it says, sign your name and 2 beneficiaries, right? So she signs 2 beneficiaries, but she has 4 kids, whatever. Assumed intention, not legally enforceable. She thought when she passed, everything she had, no matter what, would be distributed between the 4 children, which if they had all been alive would have been probably accurate. So the 2 people of the beneficiaries, one of the sons died. All of his stuff goes to his wife. So the mother didn't update the paperwork to include the other people. So when she died, the one brother got it, and then the wife got the other half. But they're fighting now because it's assumed that everything would be split 4 ways, but this thing is split 2 ways. And it creates fiction in the family. But, where are you at? On the side of the daughter who's like, this is the legal or the daughter-in-law, this is the legal document, or the side of the family where it's like, well, we should all be doing this. But she's your sister-in-law. She's been your sister-in-law for 35 years, 40 years. So these are things that can be avoided. If there's any estate planners in the in the group, this is one thing, update it. So we're talking about updating your legal documents for any life change. If it's not you that's moving, if it's not you that's getting divorced, but one of your beneficiaries is, get that updated. All right, next one up. The importance of documentation, number 2. So a single lady, elderly lady, did all the documentation, knew where everything was, had these great little cutouts, Post-it notes on top of every jewelry box, inside her china cabinet, all that great stuff, which is great. However, the next beneficiary in her family, the single inheritor and assumed executor of the estate, is a great niece who she had met once, but it had to go to family. It couldn't have gone to a neighbor or a friend for some reason. So this, she lived in Canada. She's a Canadian citizen. She can't do the paperwork. Luckily, her husband is an American citizen, had dual citizenship. So he comes down, doesn't know this lady, doesn't know anything about it. The niece doesn't want any of it because she barely knew this woman. So everything went through an estate liquidator. So all that hard work of documenting everything, hoping that it would be distributed between the family, but you have no relationship with that person. There's legal constrictions for, states, different countries. So if you're being organized and you want your final wishes to be well documented and easy to execute, select multiple people. If this person can't do it, doesn't want to, it rolls to the next person. Your estate planners will tell you how to do stuff like that. But this is one of those things where you might have the good intention, but it's not happening. Value of items. We'll talk about this a little bit later, the trash versus treasure. Well-documented, local, and helpful executor. Her next door neighbor, her good friend, is the executor. She literally walked next door to the house. She's doing everything. She's the executor, but the inheritor is a distant family. Again, a nephew she barely spoke to, lives in Los Angeles. So when your executor is going through and liquidating your estate or doing your wishes with whatever needed to happen, make sure that there's some realistic expectations of what the perceived value of each item is. If it's, a couch from IKEA, write IKEA, put it on the back. Like I spoke to Patricia, she went through a friend's house and wrote, this came from, West Elm, this came from IKEA, on a Post-it note and stuck it on the back of the pictures. So it's not high value. And if the thing that is high value, let somebody know so that there's realistic expectations of what's happening. There's not a conflict between your executor and your beneficiary. And that's it for me for now. We're off to Stacey for the stuff problem.
Yeah, so I came across a really interesting blog recently that had all these amazing facts and figures about what we actually own, what we have in our homes. And these are my three favorite. There are 300,000 items in the average American home. 10% of Americans pay for offsite storage, and 25% of people with two-car garages don't have room to park cars inside. I've definitely seen this firsthand, so this tracks with what I have seen with my own eyes. And here's what that looks like in real life. I did residential organizing and move management for a few years, and I've seen a lot of houses full of stuff. And these are very representative of what we typically find when we go into a home and we're either packing up for a downsizing project, maybe somebody's moving to a community or a memory care center, or maybe somebody's passed away and we're helping the family clear out the estate. This is very often what it looks like. Here's your garage that you can't park a car in on the right side. And organizing, we refer to clutter as deferred decision making, and this is super true. If you don't make decisions about all of your stuff while you still can, you are leaving the burden of all of that decision making for somebody else. And a lot of times we're not making decisions so much as we're making assumptions. We're assuming that our heirs will want and love our stuff as much as we did. And unfortunately, that's just rarely how it plays out. The vast majority of a person's estate ends up going either to charity or even to landfill. And that's because tastes and trends change over time. A lot of folks, younger generations, don't have as much physical space. So even if they wanted these items, maybe they don't have room for it. And especially when we're talking about big furniture pieces like this, they can be prohibitively expensive to move. So even if you had somebody who is interested in your antique armoire that's been in the family for 4 generations, if that free piece of furniture is going to cost $500 to relocate it, you might decide it's not worth it for you. So if it's very important for you that certain pieces that you own be transferred to somebody, have that conversation up front with the individuals that you have in mind, find out if they actually want it, and maybe even put aside some money so that they can afford to take it off of your hands. And like Jen referenced earlier, it's not always clear to our loved ones what's trash versus treasure, whether we're talking, is it valuable because it was expensive or because it was of sentimental value to you? So as long as you're doing that home inventory, make sure you document which items are valuable. And if you want specific people to have specific items, make a note of that too. It's really, like Jen talked about this already, it's really common for families to get into fights over who gets what. And that's even families that like each other. There can just be hurt feelings and crushed expectations. And it's best to not put our loved ones in that position in the first place. And another reason why you need a home inventory is for insurance and disaster recovery. If you lost everything tomorrow, think about how easy or how difficult it would be for you to recover from that event. So here's a quick hit, like you can do this one thing today. It'll take about 15 minutes. All you need to do, this is to get you ready for your home inventory. Just take your phone out and stand in the middle of each room of your home and take a 360-degree video of each space. And feel free to narrate it if there's anything you need to call out. But this will, if you had to replace everything in your house tomorrow, this will at least be evidence of what it looked like and what was inside. And that's more than a lot of people have when they lose their home spontaneously to fire or natural disaster. So Jen's going to talk to you now about appraisal services that can help you document and catalog those potentially high value items.
Okay, so the what's it worth? So this is the biggest thing that people fight over. For example, this is the one that I get all the time is this is grandma or great grandma's engagement ring from the 1940s. She wore it every day for 80 years. Great. So it's a diamond and it's platinum, which sounds like it should be a lot. A lot of times it's a very small diamond in an illusion setting that makes it look a lot bigger. And then platinum, but it's really thin platinum. It's delicate and it's only a couple of grams. People are always stunned when I show them the comps, the comparisons, that it's, $1,500 for those two pieces. Even brand new, it's $2,000. So they're fighting cats and dogs, tooth and nail, whatever you want to call it, over something that's $1,000. Meanwhile, the smart girl is picking out this necklace that looks kind of ugly, but it's, real rubies and emeralds that are giant size. So valuation, there's replacement value, estate estimate, fair market value. Replacement value is for insurance. I lost it. I need to replace this exact thing in this exact way, and they give you the money to get it again. Fair market value is, hey, I have my grandma's engagement ring and I want to sell it. It's about $1,500 and somebody gives you $1,500 for it. Estate estimates tend to be lower. They're just looking to kind of move the product. Then you have inventories. Like Stacey said, stand in your room, take a video all the way around. If you have the capacity to take an inventory of the room, and there's tools she'll talk about a little bit later, there's a basic inventory, a simple list. The living room has a couch, an end table, 2 lamps, a television, blah, blah, blah. Itemized with measurements and values and photos. We have a 6-foot couch from IKEA. It's the Herder version in beige. You know what I mean? Maybe with value. We spent $1,000 on this in 2022. Appraisals are a little bit more detailed. They're like inventories or the itemized inventory. Bulk appraisal, numbered list with photos and how many low to mid value items. Individual appraisals for higher value items. With jewelry, it's like my engagement ring, the necklace I got from my grandma, the Rolex watch, but it can also be artwork, stamp collections, etc., with a large appraisal for those items. And that having some sort of list helps you when something happens and you're in grief, you're in stress, you don't want to do it. There's all this other stuff happening. And then this is where Stacey comes in and talks a little bit about the numbers and the hours.
Yeah, so grief, it turns out, is really expensive, you guys. According to empathy.com's 2024 cost of dying report, the average family spends $12,616 settling the affairs of a loved one after they die. And this is a national average, so you can bet that it's more expensive than this in California. Just on funeral expenses alone in the state of California, average expense is $7,000 to $12,000. And that's really significant when you think about the fact that most Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account. So if you had to quickly deal with a situation like this, how would you fund that? So there's food for thought. And then there's the cost in terms of stress. So among executors, 78% reported suffering long-lasting physical symptoms like lack of sleep, headaches, weight changes. And then 93% reported emotional issues like anxiety and depression. And the stress is a little bit lower for non-executors, but it's still really high. And then there's also the cost of our earning potential. So what impact does this have on our employment? Most employers offer only 5 to 6 days of bereavement leave if they offer any at all, and that is not super helpful, given the fact that it can take a couple of years in many cases to wind down the affairs of someone who's passed away. 69% of executors and 27% of non-executors said their jobs were impacted for 1 to 2 years, tying up those loose ends for someone's estate. And this is a lot like taking on a second unpaid job for a year or more, depending on your role in the situation. Just for illustration, I had a client last year whose mother passed away unexpectedly. She was relatively young. This was not anticipated. It was a total surprise. It took my client an entire year of nights and weekends to go through mom's possessions, pack and ship boxes to out-of-state siblings and family members, arrange for trash haulers, movers, donation services. And then once they had to put the house up for sale, then there was engaging with a real estate agent and paying out of pocket for deferred maintenance and repairs on the home, staging it and landscaping even. All of these things had to be done before the estate could be closed and everything was done. So in this case, my client was able to recover costs once the home sold, but in the meantime, it cost them tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket and all of their free time for well over a year to manage that chaos. So by now, you're just like, yeah, I get it. It's really important, but how do you start? Well, honestly, I'm not being a smarty pants here. The main thing is just to decide that it's important enough to you, because if it's not, this is a lot of work and you're not going to have the energy and the stamina to carry you across the finish line. So what you should do is picture your most important people, the ones that you would leave your estate to, and perhaps the ones you would choose to be your executor. Picture them burdened with extra work, extra expenses, extra physical and emotional stress in their most vulnerable moment as they're grieving your loss. If that makes you feel a little icky, then today might be a good day to decide to start. And then step 2 is to prepare a checklist of your action items. And we have a checklist that you can use to get you, to kick off this process. We'll talk more about that at the end. And step 3 is to put dates on your calendar so you can start checking things off that list. I like to say if it's not on your calendar, it doesn't exist. So if you can time block, you stand a chance of actually starting to move through these steps. And then also encourage folks to have conversations with your loved ones. So get them a little more comfortable with the idea of talking about what happens next. This can feel really overwhelming. So it would be really helpful if somebody could tell us about what vital documents one might need to include in this estate planning process. Well, luckily, Ranya is here to share that information with us.
Yeah, vital documents are clearly extremely important. Looks like we have a poll here. So if you guys want to take this poll. But vital documents are very important. I always start with how many of you have ever lost your ID, and you go frantic and you go hunting for, the last pair of jeans or the jacket you wore to search for that and how anxious it made you. Vital documents are very crucial, and it's a very crucial, item to have checked off and make sure that you have available to you. So, and to your loved ones, when we think about just our IDs, birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, social securities, cards, or replacement documents, it's really important. Even if you were to think of the last time you went to the DMV, especially with the real ID happening right now, they ask you for multiple documents. They want you to have a social security card. They want you to have your birth certificate. They ask for everything except for your blood type. It's it's a difficult process. It's a very difficult process. So it's very important to ensure that you have your original documents in order in a secure place, especially when you're talking about your real property, titles, deeds, home inventory, which has been covered, and a list of who gets what. And also, when you're thinking about your everyday hustle and grind to build this empire that you're leaving behind for your loved ones, do they know? Like, I now have my 1 and 4-year-old are now 17 and 15. And so we've transitioned in life. Do my kids have a phone number to my employer? Do they know who my boss is? If I'm involved in a car accident or something happens as an emergency with them in school, do they know who to call to get a hold of me if they're unable to reach me? There's so many important phone numbers, documents, whether it's for financial or for insurance purposes. A lot of us have our bank accounts, our investments, credit cards. Who handles all of that? So for myself, I have minor kids, so I can't list them as a beneficiary on the account. And if I was to pass today, they can't come in and access those funds to continue with household expenses. They're minors. So have you created a trust? Do you have a will? Now, you've spent that time and money to establish those resources, but have you taken those documents to a financial center? In the state of California, when you do enter a financial institution, I personally work for Bank of America, there's a 30 to 45 waiting day, period. So if financial affairs need to be handled, there's huge implication to those that are going to be handling your affairs. So it's really important to understand, where those real life documents are. Are they spelled out? That's why I have that manila envelope on the side of my refrigerator, even though there's sophisticated processes in place from digital storage to emails or screenshots to my loved ones, extra key to that safe deposit box. So really, really important to make sure that you have these original documents in a safe place that are accessible, or even a certified copy. So we covered a little bit about estates, especially with Stacey talking about our valued goods and, home furnishing. Jennifer covered jewelry, precious goods. What happens to that? If you have a will in place or a trust, are you actually putting that tool to work? And do you know if your current trust attorney that created that document, do they have digital copies? Do your loved ones have access to obtaining those documents? Very important to put these items to work, especially from a banking perspective. And if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you work for corporate America, there's important documents like those business partnership agreements, estate and inventory, financial accounts. Business accounts particularly are close to my heart because we can't list beneficiaries for our clients. So if Jennifer and I are business owners and I pass away, are my kids going to receive my entitlement? Are there legal documents in place to protect your loved ones? It's just starting the conversation and really just thinking about those things from an everyday bank account to your retirement, to your business asset and protection. These things are very, very important. And, it's always very important to have communication. Let's say you have all of your documents together. Do your loved ones know? I'm not just a divorcee. I'm a widow and I'm happily remarried. And it's really, really important now that I'm in this new chapter of my life that my husband, he works in law enforcement. He has no kids. So the conversation is, well, what happens now with our new piece of real estate, right? So that's a conversation. We sat down, we discussed it. Do we know who goes to what? My children are so minor. So in the event of catastrophe or something, who really is going to be taking care of my kids? Yes, they can be home by themselves. They're of, an age where they can take care of themselves at home. But who takes care of dear old Biscuit? Biscuit's at home by herself, our little puppy. So, it's really, really important to have the conversation. Are the lights going to stay on? Do the bank accounts continue to receive direct deposits and, ACH payments to, PG&E and water? It's really, really important, even with just everyday basics, to think of how is the household going to continue to operate? Who takes care of our loved ones, our animals, our children? And just having that conversation. How do we delete different access to social media? I know Stacey will go into this, but when my late husband passed away, I received a message from him. His, page got hacked, so that's not very fun. It personally took me 2 years to close his estate, especially with having, 3 stepchildren, making sure that everyone, received what they needed to make sure college is taken care of. It's just not a fun thing to have to deal with when you're still needing to go on with your everyday life, work, take care of your family, and then still try to figure out how you're going to, even process what just took place. So that's very important.
All right. So yeah, let's talk about that breadcrumb trail that we're going to leave our family. So back in the day, our loved ones might continue to see bills or mail or some kind of physical paper trail that tipped them off about the accounts that they should terminate on our behalf. Today, we are so paperless. Our lives are totally digital. That trail of breadcrumbs is gone. So we want to avoid sending our heirs on a multi-month scavenger hunt if something happens to us. A quick example here, my dad, when we lost my stepmother in 2016, she had been the CEO of the house. She paid all the bills. She took care of all of that stuff. When she died, there was no transfer of knowledge and no plan in place. So my dad was left with no passwords, no login information, literally did not know how to use a computer, and was just like couldn't do basic things like keep his utilities turned on. He had to learn all of that from scratch by himself, and it was extremely devastating to see him go through that. So here's how we're going to leave a breadcrumb trail for people we love. There's high tech and low tech ways to tackle this. So one of the higher tech ways that I especially love, there's a company called trustworthy.com. I'm a certified expert with them. It's a software subscription service that helps you gather and protect your vital documents and household documents, and it makes it easy to share them with exactly the right people at the right time. There's a couple of other companies like Everplans and Clocker that do similar things. And then the low-tech version of this is the Knockbox, which is basically a file box with done-for-you pre-printed file folder tabs with all of the major vital document categories. So you can order this box. It's not very expensive, and you can just start using it immediately. And then tell your family, friends, whoever is responsible for picking up the pieces, that you've done that and where it is located. And then we talked about inventories. There's some really good inventory tools out there like Pinventory and FairSplit that, again, you can do this very simply with an Excel spreadsheet or even a notebook and a pad of paper. But these tools let you share what you're doing very seamlessly with loved ones. And then password managers. Oh my goodness, we need to be using password managers if we're not. These help you with security and using better passwords and sharing passwords, because that is a big deal when somebody passes away. If you don't have access to their accounts, it's very difficult to turn them off. Most of us have more than 200 passwords, by the way, so just think about that. If you get left as the executor of somebody's estate and you don't have any of those passwords, how long would it take you to crack that nut? And then also, as long as we're putting all of our passwords in one place, why not also start that list, like a master list of your online bill pay accounts? And this is what a simple spreadsheet could look like. And this is, as a bonus, a tool that can also help you keep track of all of your subscriptions and make sure that you're only paying for things that you actually use. And most importantly, having everything in one place makes it easy for loved ones to pick up where you left off. If you do use a password manager, some of them can do double duty. I use 1Password for my household, and I'm able to do basically the equivalent of this spreadsheet and all my passwords in one place. And in fact, I'm even using it to a large extent as my legacy plan. There's also some amazing ways to preserve your memories. It can be very difficult to let things go. And if you check out a product like Artifacts, which if you are having a hard time letting something go, you can take a photo of it and you can capture the story of that item. So the historical context, the sentimental importance, all of that in one place online. And again, makes it easy to share with others. Storyworth and Memento are two tools that will feed you writing prompts once a week, and you can start to flesh out the details of your life and leave this amazing story legacy for your loved ones. At the end of the year, you get like a hardcover book they send you in the mail with all of your answers to these questions. Pretty cool. And then tools like Nemu and FairSplit are really great for helping to settle estates and avoid family feuds. All of these resources are going to be in a guide that we're going to provide to you at the end of this, by the way. And Ranya mentioned our digital legacy. So a lot of us don't think about what happens to our social media accounts after we go. And if you don't designate legacy contacts on your accounts, it's difficult or impossible for loved ones to turn them off. And it's tempting to think, who cares when I'm gone? Like, what does it matter if my Facebook account is still live? But Ranya just gave you an example of why that's no bueno, because just like that is a lot of data yet, like within our accounts that people can still hack and do bad things with. And, it's not just Ranya that's had this experience. I've actually talked to many people who've been the recipient of text messages from deceased loved ones. So you can set up legacy contacts for these 3 accounts in about 30 minutes or less. So this is a great place to start immediately if you haven't already done this. A lot of folks don't realize if they designate, let's say you designate a single beneficiary in your will, they think, oh, that person just has the keys to my whole kingdom, including my online life. And that's not true. So terms and conditions for each of these different accounts are individualized, and it's really important, just like how we have to designate beneficiaries for financial products, that's separate from who gets designated in your will. This is separate from who gets designated in your will. So you can do what's called, you can add a rider to your will for a digital estate plan. And I recommend, if you're talking to an estate planner, put that in there. And I'm just going to recap super fast actions that we can take today to get started immediately on our own planning. So talk to a lawyer about an estate plan if you have not already. If you have an estate plan, review it, please. And then number 2, take 360-degree videos of your physical space. You literally just take your phone out, turn the camera, the video feature on, and just move through your space. You can pan up or down, but make sure that you're capturing the entire space. If you want to, open drawers or closets and capture that as well. And that's your photographic evidence for a inventory. And then number 3, start a list of online accounts and designate digital legacy contacts for the big 3. If you guys do this, I will high five all of you so hard, because a recent survey by caring.com showed that only about a quarter of Americans have a will, and 55% that said that they have taken no action whatsoever toward establishing a will. And here you are sitting through this presentation and taking steps in the right direction. And I think that poll that we had up most recently looks like 80% of you don't have an estate plan. So you are in the right place. And you don't have to do this by yourself. There's so many people who are happy to help you with this stuff. Estate planners, financial professionals, move managers, professional organizers, appraisers, local auction houses, estate liquidators, trash haulers, real estate agents. I mean, the list goes on. So if you need help with any of these things, it is available, and we can help you find it if you're not sure who to ask. We have lots of references. So here's the gift I promised you all. Grab this QR code. It'll ask you for an email address, and then you'll be able to download this guide. So even if you were taking notes, you may have missed a few things. Most of what we covered is in this guide, including the list of vital documents to kick off your conversation with an estate planner. And with that, I think we have a few minutes for questions and answers.
Told you it was chock full of good information, right?
So we have one last poll for everybody here. Describe your mood. How you doing? Checking with the room here.
Stacey's so nice. When she did the poll, she didn't even spell out the bad word. She's like, oh,
It's a lot of information. It's a lot of really good information.
Fire hose.
And shout out to Amy. She already reached out to a couple of her siblings and told them that they're going to be executors of her estate. So I'm not calling you out, Amy, but yeah, A+.
So again, we have a pretty even spread across, how people are doing. Now's a great time to kind of either come off mute and ask your question, or just chat it into the Zoom chat. I had kind of one cheeky question, one actual question, but there's a trend on the video apps about death cleaning.
Mhm.
Just curious because I love watching those like extreme cleanup videos. Professional opinions on that?
Oh, yes. I absolutely applaud, and I think it's a great idea because, and there's a book called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. It's wonderful. It's a very quick read, and it is what that does is it helps you. I think a lot of people tend to hang on to stuff more toward the end of life, and I've come to realize this is like a proxy move. Like this is you just getting like digging in and holding on even harder to something that you know you're going to have to let go of at some point. So psychologically, I think it prepares you for the inevitable because I don't know if you guys know this, but we're all going to die at some point. And so it helps prepare you psychologically. It helps you have conversations with your friends and family so they can get prepared. Anything that you would love for other people to have after you're gone, it's lovely if you can give it to them now and say, oh, you want this thing? How about if you take it home with you today? You know they want it, you know they're going to enjoy it, and you get to see the look on their face when they take it off your hands. So there's just so many great things about the Swedish death cleaning process. I know not everybody's down for it, but if you
Yeah.
are, my mom did it. I'm so glad because she's not going to leave me with those pictures I showed you.
There's
Totally.
there's an article I put on my LinkedIn. So any of you can join, like me on link or friend me on LinkedIn, whatever you want to call it. And it's a great article from the New Yorker about the process that a woman went through from, hey, I really need to clean to, do I really want to get rid of this to, like, are the China cups going to enjoy their time at Stacey's house? Like, they don't have feelings to, the relief of finally giving it to somebody that really wants it. So it's a nice, gentle way to kind of go through. And also, to do away with the shame of, why do I have 24 champagne glasses? Like, who did I think I was? There's all the emotions in there, and she does a great job of kind of walking you through it softly. So if you're not sure if you want to do it, that's a good catalyst to like, okay, I can enjoy all these feelings as I go along. What other questions? No
We'll
question.
give folks a few more minutes to come up with some, but I think you just kind of hit on something I was wondering about. Like, why is this so hard to do? One, it's so multifaceted.
Mhm.
It's overwhelming, the sheer amount of things. No one likes to contemplate their own death. No one wants to think about their sweet relatives, fighting over, a useless object that in other universe would have no material meaning. Um, what do you guys see? Like, what are the impediments? Because this isn't the first presentation of this type I've been to, and yet I've got some work to do.
Yeah. From my end, I'm dealing with jewelry, and um, I often get people coming in a year or more after their loved one has passed on, unless they're the executor and they're like, gotta bang it out in like 3 months, 6 months. It's grief. It's
Denial.
lack of knowledge. I don't know if this is worth anything, or the fear that it's worth something, the Antique Roadshow, whoever put that in the comments. It's like that. And then it's, the other emotions. I have siblings. I need to sell it. I don't want to sell it. I shouldn't sell it. Can I make it into something else? So those are the big ones. Grief, shame, knowledge, I guess, lack of knowledge. Stacey or Ranya, what do you think?
Yeah, I was just typing in response to Jesse's comment. My procrastination has to do with the fact that this feels like a full-time job. Yes, I get that. And I think my best recommendation or advice would be just break it into tiny bite-sized chunks because realistically, there is no end. You're never done with this because as soon as you're done, life changes, circumstances change, and you have to redo stuff again. So don't expect perfection. I think people feel like if they can't make it done and perfect, that it's not worth doing. And from my perspective, if you even could do like 10 to 20% of the work to save your executor from having to do it later, that is worth doing. So just do little bite-sized pieces as much as you can, and maybe even like a half an hour every week or every other week. Just start kind of chipping away at your to-do list, and it doesn't need to feel as overwhelming as you probably are making it out to be in your head.
We have some great suggestions coming through the chat, room by room. People sort of plus one-ing many of your recommendations about password things, agreement around relatives thinking XYZ collection is extremely important and valuable, but it is really not. Yeah. So I'll just make one final pass and open again to the group. Like, any final questions? I think there's been a lot of great things happening in the chat. I'll just leave a few seconds for that.
Or maybe a aha moment for you throughout, something you didn't know. I think that's always helpful for us.
It's great to know. I'll get us started. I just love that. Take your phone out, walk around your house, 360, narrate over it. I love the fact our smartphones can help us with this work.
Me too.
Thank you. Nobody else? Is the artifacts people on here still? One of the founders of
She might have left. Yep.
is on here.
We are right at the 1 p.m. mark.
We were kind of fangirling in the background, so.
Totally. This is sort of the end of our official presentation. I'll leave the last word to the moderators and then to Eli and Stephanie. So thank you so much for coming today, everybody.
Thanks for having us. This was so fun.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody.
We enjoyed it.
Thank you for a wonderful presentation. Stephanie, you want to close us out?
Yeah, having my family has gone through this in so many hard ways, and so there was a lot of I wish we had planned better, and so thank you all for helping us think ahead. So thank you all for coming and for our presenters, and you gave us a lot to think about. Take care, everyone.
Great.
Take care.
Thank you for watching the Best Notary Speaker Series. Come join us on Zoom every Wednesday of the month at noon Pacific and 3 p.m. Eastern. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified when new episodes are released. This speaker series is sponsored by The Best Notary, your trusted document concierge from Maui to Maine.